I can't be star. You are, get on my way.
If IG tries to continue the fight, they are going to be 4 versus 5. But TheShy goes on a killing spree and gets himself out. No way!
TheShy, I would say, has looked a cut above every single top laner.
This is a guy who's becoming a household name.
He's just a transcending top laner. People could confidently say that he's the best player in the world. Confident, the best player in the world.
I can't be star. You are, get on my way. I got a plan. I like I'm not. One on the top. We've been in before. You know what I did? I'm on my job. I'm doing my thing. I'm just on do it again.
If an enemy come, he just touch the gang or just kill the enemy. Make enemy scared to gank.
Flash to try and set up the straight line skill shot. Red like a book. TheShy outplays it. And then Ning just able to play cleaner.
Talking to the EU pros, I mean, the stories that they tell about playing versus TheShy are like literal nightmare fuel.
Pretty much every matchup he knows, just plays to his limits really well.
Shut down on the Ning will not mean much when Invictus Gaming is diving deep into the base, and it is an ace!
Just look at those angles from TheShy.
I think TheShy just like probably one of the best players at living in the chaos.
These insane carry top laners are looking onto him to see if they can topple him.
You make a normal tier list, and then you make 4 when you're facing TheShy. We can't give him Jace, we can't give him this.
Which one do you give him?
I mean, ideally you can ban 20 carries.
You know what I did? I'm on my job. I'm doing my thing. I'm just on you board.
All right, here we go.
They said whatever, and I don't just talk to you. You should score. I'm going in.
还是真的是可以一个打穿5个的感觉，一个追着5个跑。
좋은 선수라고 사람들에게 불리게 됐는데 좀 그것에 대해서 제가 보통 압박감 안 느끼는 편인데 이제 조금 관심이 많아지시고 좀 더 경기를 잘하는 모습을 보여주다 보니까 좀 압박감을 좀 느끼기 시작했고 지금 MSI가 중요한 무대가 될 것 같아요 저희한테.
跟他最好的表现的话来说的话，就是还差一点，就现在他状态还不是最好的状态。
Welcome back to MSI 2019 and a tournament that has been defined by flex picks, by crazy unique champion pools. We're about to have G2 take on the undefeated Invictus Gaming, but I wanted to take my crack at presenting the dream composition for G2 if they're going to somehow usurp this powerhouse. So the first thing that I want people to notice is that this isn't a crazy composition. This is actually quite standard. Now let's just go lane by lane, starting with the top. It's Aurelia for Wunder. Now the key thing is this guy is the best Aurelia player in this tournament. And what's interesting about Aurelia is how she diversifies the damage portfolios. Normally you see a lot of compositions being double AP, which then requires the jungler to be that 80 Jarvan or something like a Rek'Sai. By taking the Aurelia, G2 are then also unable to unlock Jankos on a comfort pick like Elise. And he doesn't just have the Elise, he other has AP junglers like the Karthus. Moving into the mid lane, it's Ryze. Yes, Wunder can play the Ryze, but Caps is my favorite Ryze player for this team because of how he utilizes side lanes. The ability to use Realm Warp and to play and eat up the map is why G2's mid game is so potent and proficient, which finally leads me to their duo lane in Xayah and Rakan. I kind of went back and forth with this and I was like, you could probably do a Kai'Sa or a Galio because the 2 main pieces are that you need to have engage potential, like the Rakan, and you need to have follow-up CC. Now, Xayah gives that a bit more, and I think that Perkz and Mikyx have been not having the greatest tournament from time to time. Xayah and Rakan are a very solid 2v2 that allows them to play aggressive, but can shore up some of those over-aggressive instances where they have been caught out. That said, this is going to be Invictus Gaming on blue, or G2 on blue side. So how G2 even managed to get that composition of a Ryze, of an Aurelia, I don't think IG's going to give it to them.
Okay, so there's the rub, right? They may not be able to solidify this exact composition, but I think I want to hone in on some of the key aspects of this composition that might make G2 successful in this game.
Yeah, I love personally the Xayah and Rakan for the exact point of like having the strength in the side lane, but also the ability to really bait out a lot of jungle attention, the extra safetiness that Rakan has, being able to just like play a little pressure, and then just whisk away back to your Xayah. So I would love to see this comp in action.
My only concern, though, is the power spike. So Xayah being a 3-item champion versus a 2-item, which seems to dominate this tournament, which is, again, why I was kind of bringing up names like the Kai'Sa.
Yeah, I do also like how you added an early game jungler like Elise for Jankos here, because so much is going to be about early jungle attention towards these solo lanes that are going to be testing their limits versus each other. I know, Wunder was even tweeting out like 20 minutes ago how much he's looking forward to playing against TheShy and how he wants more fighting than he had in the last game. So if there's going to be these solo laners that have such high skill ceilings, fighting and trading that much with FlexPix, you have to have an early game jungler that's going to answer Ning, because Ning is definitely going to get in there and turn the tide.
During the countdown, we brought up the fact that throughout this tournament, coming into it, and here so far in the group stage, it has been a conversation about the G2 solo laners, and that the guy who's kind of gone unsung up to this point was Jankos. He has to be the one to put those solo laners or help them get into advantageous positions. So again, the idea of the Elise having that early game power that might put them over the edge.
And the thing is it doesn't have to be the Elise. Like, I don't expect these champions to come out, but it's taking the core ideas of what these champions allow G2 to do, which is to split up the map, to split up fights so that if it is a 5v5, you've got maybe a 2v2 on the top side, maybe a 1v1 on the bottom side of all team members being grouped up. And again, the Karthus and the Elise. I think these picks are so unique to G2 because people are running out of jungle options when that champion pool gets pinched. That's why we've seen so much Xin Zhao running around. It's because once you take Rek'Sai and Jarvan because of the double AP, where else do you start to grab?
And it doesn't even have to be one of the early game duelists, independent junglers. We just saw earlier today a Sejuani used in conjunction with 2 melee assassins.
Yeah.
Yes, Sejuani, in a 1v1, not that threatening, right? But if you do have Aurelia and Akali, both of them stack up the passive very quickly, that 2v2 is very strong.
And just moving on to this game, because I think one of the biggest aspects of that composition is going to be in the fact that what Ryze and Elise gives you is the fact that you can move from lane to lane once you have push inside lane, especially once you have Realm Warp. And one of the greatest aspects of G2's game in this tournament has been, having Caps shove out and going alongside Jankos to help out Wunder at times, go to the bottom side and others. Really, if you're going up against G2 and Invictus Gaming, one thing they need to really be aware of is where Caps is on the map at all times, so TheShy doesn't become a victim to these 3v1 dives.
Now, Rakan for Mikyx, that's a pick that I love just because, again, the idea of the trigger pull for G2. You're staring across the rift at another team who's just as willing to pull the trigger, but making sure you have that impactful, team fight starting ultimate and engage tool, I think, will be crucial for G2.
I'm almost terrified that, because this draft can go 10 million different ways. If I had to try to predict what's going to happen in this, it's probably going to be different every single time. A single ban will dramatically change it. I would hate to see the Tahm Kench come out for G2, however, because I do think it takes away so much from their team fighting. Invictus Gaming are going to try to fight you, and while Tahm Kench then makes sense that you can try to disengage, Mikyx is so much stronger a player when he is also engaging. So fight fire with fire, go toe-to-toe with IG, and make sure that you are also bringing your own arsenal of engage tools.
I did also like the Morgana look, adding the black shield onto these diving solo laners.
Yeah.
It's just so many ways that they can go with it,
At the end of the day, I love myself, coming from the LPL, like Neeko's, Tahm, Kench. Whenever you see those, you usually envision the semi-globals to the fight. So if you do bring in a Tahm Kench, certainly utilize it so you can get your shoving side lanes, and then you match Invictus Gaming in these fights.
I just think it's so scary to try to take Tahm Kench and play a side lane against someone like IG who are so rapid and collapsing on you.
I do want to talk, too, then, about IG, because obviously, we've crafted this discussion around, G2 perhaps handing IG their first loss. But I think we also have to recognize that IG is going to come out in full force, trying to ensure that that does not happen. By looking at the current standings, I would assume IG looks at G2 as their foremost competition when moving towards those best of fives. And this is going to be your last opportunity to go up against them on the main stage before perhaps maybe a finals meeting in a best of five.
100%. If we see Invictus Gaming lose out or pick something questionable, we can't give them the same excuse we have to other opponents where, Ning came out and made that interview and point of us saying, when we go up against weaker teams, like teams they think that they can play anything and still come out with a lead, much like that Flash Rolls game, then they, go a little wild. I think they see G2 somewhat near as equals. I know the games have been kind of wild the last time we saw it. I'm expecting IG to play to their fullest.
I can also see them trying to test Because like you're talking about, this is one of the last chances they have to gain information on each other.
Yes.
If the group does play out, as we expected, then Invictus Gaming and G2 are probably going to meet up in the finals, so they wouldn't be scrimming each other anytime soon. And this would be one of the very last chances that they have to test out something versus the other opponent.
This actually feels like probably the first time in MSI groups where I'm watching all the games and I'm not getting as much information as I would like. There's not as many definitive statements, I think. You watch SKT get slammed in 16 minutes, and I'm not ready to be like, yes, in SKT, they're nothing in this tournament. Like, you're still scared about that best of 5. I watched G2 versus IG the first time around and the disastrous Vayne pick, and I'm not ready to completely write off G2. Like, IG are scary, but I still don't really have a good grasp on, like, how scary they are because in the way that they're winning. I feel like I actually need the best of 5 and, like, a fuller strategy to really appreciate it.
We have a small delay on stage, so while that's occurring and league officials are taking care of it, I want to actually open this discussion up because with the interview that we just saw Shox have with Doublelift also stated the idea that TL feels they could beat any team, but any team can beat TL. And likewise, he would extend that statement to pretty much any team in the tournament, maybe barring IG. But that is very much a sentiment that I'm starting to, to garner here in this tournament with the step up from Flash Wolves and for PvB to take down G2 just the other day, that this is a tournament where still anything can happen and maybe things aren't as predetermined as they felt at the end of day 1 or 2.
I would like to hear what other people think about this one, because for me, a lot of that information that players have is gathered through scrims.
And we don't see 90% of them.
Yeah, true. And a lot of the times you don't get killer edge, you don't get a lot of the that same attitude in scrims that you would have in full play. And so for me, I would say for certain, IG comes out as first, and I don't see them getting taken down when they're playing to their fullest. And the same I would say for G2. So it's going to be fun to see them play today.
And to clarify, I don't mean that equal chance for every team to take the tournament. I think more in reference to the best of 1 stage of a group stage. Even if it's a 10% or 5% chance to take a game, there is that ability in all cases.
For me, it's like the idea that it almost feels like there's not any upsets that's happening, that everything is going to how we thought it was going to go. I think like Flash Wolves probably the biggest surprise on their resurgence up here, and now we have a very close race between TL and Flash Wolves and who's going to make that. But otherwise, like the top 3, I'm very confident to be like Invictus Gaming, G2, SKT. But how far that gap is, that's what I'm really curious about. And I think that's why this tournament is so intriguing to me and why the best of 1s at this point really don't mean anything to me. I'm like, one of these crazy assassin picks gets popped off because someone messed up a gank, and that completely swings the game. So maybe it's also like a meta thing that it's so snowbally.
Yeah, that was something I really wanted to touch on. Since we're having so many of these matchups between things like Silas, Akali, Ryze, Aurelia, those champions look so amazing when ahead, right? And you start to get some money on them. And both of these teams are so good at utilizing those champions when they do get ahead. However, those determining factors are so small and can be determined by such few moments early on in the game. That's also contributing to it.
And not to contradict myself, but I'm going to try it anyway. For SKT, I always have faith that when they find themselves in a best of 5, or even when we see them with these drafts that I think are completely doable, like the Kalista that's been consistently coming through from the bottom side of the map. And I think that if they get into a best of 5, the SKT versus G2 is actually genuinely interesting. I'm still in that camp where I think that it goes the distance to a best of 5. And I want to see G2. I know it might not happen because one of these teams are going to take second place. They ain't going to face each other. But I still think that SKT can still come back.
I just think it's so cool how we're seeing this level of skill on display. Like the styles that we're seeing from these teams, the successful roams, taking that time away from your lane, there are huge possible drawbacks to a lot of these plays that both of these teams are making. And it just goes to further emphasize how good they are to be able to pull off these styles. Because like you're saying, even SK Telecom and Team Liquid that dominated North America, right, with these much more standard, less roaming styles, those can find so much success. And yet when you come to the international stage and you raise the level with these types of teams, that's where it comes to fall apart.
And in a lot of ways, that then takes kind of the focus off of the lane matchups, right? You're not looking at the 1v1s anymore necessarily. You are looking at the 2v2s when the jungler's involved, or the 3v3 when they bring the mid laner up to the top lane. And so often, right, we're looking at the Akali Sylas matchup and it goes one way one time, and then we look at it the next time and it goes the other way that time. But you have to now consider what were those different players doing, you know, within
get into
that
the lab.
first 15. Yeah, you got to get into the lab.
Change the Conqueror, change the Leandries. You got to choose your moments based on the builds and the adaptation that you make.
Seriously, that's why I love that Caps interview with Shox. It's talking about the fact that a lot of these are just skill matchups. It's no longer as simple as X champion beats Y champion at all points. That's never gonna, like, that's not the case any longer, especially since, like, sometimes I look at, you know, checking Twitter, a lot of people say, you know, I'm writing this team off, they have the worst draft, just like objectively speaking, and then they're still the team that comes out ahead. Not only is it skill matchups, but I think certain teams are still going to win based off of poor, objectively compositions.
You say we're not writing teams off. I tell you, two teams we're definitely not writing off is IG and G2, heading on to the Rift for their second bout here in the group stage. Casters, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dash. Quickshot, Spawn, and Vedius here to bring you game number 3 of the day. It's G2 versus IG. G2 Esports looking to pick up the first win against Invictus Gaming. And just before the draft started, TheShy posted the following in all chat. ZZZ, why the Vayne? And that's what I want to see what happens today, because Spawn, you and I did not like the Vayne pick into the Akali last time. This time around, Galio, Chase, Akali and Rakana banned.
Yeah, and I think that the reason I didn't like it is Wunder gets so much of his work done outside of the laning phase, and, you know, made the mistake yesterday of maybe underestimating what this guy can do from a deficit. And I'm interested to see today whether he goes for something a little bit more lane dominant, or whether we just see a little bit more of the, you know, let's chill out in early game. Let's explode onto Summoner's Rift.
Chilling out in early game with these two teams, Spawn. I'm looking at this and I'm expecting high volatility, early game focused draft. Interesting LeBlanc plan coming out from the side of G2. I'm just thinking, could this potentially indicate anything? Maybe an Orianna in the mid lane is something that G2 could be looking for. Maybe they don't want to have to deal with it if they're looking at maybe a Ryze right now, given that it is up and available.
Or maybe just respecting one of the best players in the world, champion pool.
Could also be that.
Especially given the fact that, you know, Rookie is quite safe when he plays something like the LeBlanc. Could just be a nice blind pick in the mid lane.
So Ryze versus Silas right now. Immediate Ryze pickup from the side of G2. You would imagine that's immediately going to be answered with the Silas, and both the Jarvan and Rek'Sai are available. So if we're sticking to standard meta, IG are going to focus on them.
And look at the player faces on the G2 side. The moment Ryze was locked in, Caps, huge smiles, Wunder as well. Silas, Rek'Sai confirmed. One of the pieces that FLICKR talked about for the ideal G2 composition was this Ryze. If it ends up in Caps' hands, I want to see what answer Wunder has in the top lane, with Irelia not being there, but it was one of those champions that can skirmish and can play a side lane that she was looking for.
And with that, now all 5 of the flex picks that we like to talk about are gone. The last remaining one is the Vladimir that is open to IG just because of how well their team plays it. Not expecting to see it, however. It has got a bit of a shaky matchup into the Ryze, so it can be chased around Summoner's Rift a little bit, and a strong bottom lane locked in now for G2.
Ooh, I think, like, looking at this draft now, the fact that IG have prioritized getting themselves the Braum. Remember, last time they played up in this matchup, Invictus Gaming went for the Rakan against Mikyx, Tahm, Kench. This time shifting up for more of a defensive matchup because they're looking at Ning to be that early game focused jungler. The problem with G2 focusing on their bot side of the map right now is that you can see these target bans. The Olaf is going to be taken off the board. Jarvan will likely also be taken away. So I wonder what Jankos will go for. Maybe the Elise actually gets banned out from the side of IG.
Well, let's find out as we are in Phase 2. Baolan has played Braum 8 times this year. He has won 7 of those games. Olaf and Zoe are the first bans in Phase 2.
See, I would like to kind of question the validity of the Olaf ban here, because there's still Lee Sin as well as Jarvan available if you want an AD early game jungler, and then you still have Elise, as you mentioned, as the AP style. So maybe this is, you know, more of the tempo or speed style, and they're looking to get away things that clear the jungle quickly, hoping that Ning gets in position around that top lane where we saw so much volatility first, because that's something that if Rek'Sai is there and has the jump on a lane opponent, can be so devastating. Like such a punch in the early game, Vedi, that sometimes you don't get the chance to follow up.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, no Pyke ban, So that option is still available for G2. Always got to remember that. I wouldn't expect it necessarily in this game, but we'll see what kind of direction G2 now go with their second ban. They've already looked at mid lane bans. The cannon ban was surprising. I think that IG are a little bit worried about handing that one over. Because with the Ryze taken off the board, there aren't actually that many good answers into the matchup. But Vladimir is still up and available, which I know is a champion that TheShy is willing to bring out if a situation is available to him.
And it's a little bit more standard than I think we expected. We expected, you know, maybe a Xayah Rakan, obviously the Rakan banned away here, but then they default back to a defensive lane matchup. Tahm Kench is something that G2 has just played so much. A little bit more standing in the jungle position as well. It is not going to be the Elise, as Frost cried out for, is going to be the Jarvan. So this is a G2 lineup that, once again, can beat you in a multitude of different ways.
And the question is, what do they round out? Now, Wunder has had interesting answers into the top lane. The Vayne into the Akali, the Pyke into the Jace, and now with Neeko locked in, we assume that can go mid or top, and that's going to be based on whatever this final pick is.
Yeah, they're leaving this flex option available to them. They would likely prefer to have the Ryze go into the Silas, but it entirely depends on what this final champion is. We already talked a little bit about the Vladimir for TheShy. Thinking about other potential top laners, like, we're really going pretty deep into the pool spawn.
Yeah, we certainly are, and Viktor is something that we haven't really seen all that much this split. Made its way into the Worlds meta as more of that answer.
In the finals as well, I believe it came out from TheShy as well, but, you know, when we talked a little bit about it, you're right, it's definitely not really been seen much ever since Worlds.
But I think the reason that he had to go for it is he had two bully mages in the top lane, so you need something that isn't melee, that can return fire. We've seen the Neeko played both ways, on hit as well as Glacial Augment, annoying harass Neeko. So this is a very safe top lane. It does take time to scale, however, should be able to trade out quite nice.
So what I love about this, if you're a G2 fan, is that right now, IG's composition is not all about the early game. There's a lot of scaling involved. And Invictus Gaming's scariest point has always been their ability to find these early leads. The only issue is for G2 is they've now got to deal with Invictus Gaming team fighting, which also is one of the best in the world because they have some of the most talented players. JackeyLove on one of his star-studded carries in the Kai'Sa. You also have Ning on a very early game focused jungler that can enable his laners. And so Invictus Gaming, it feels like that they still have a side lane options, but a little bit more focus on the team fights from me.
And when it comes down to G2, it's about being able to separate the match, use the Kench, they've got the tools, see whether they can execute on it.
And of course, it is that flavor that Frost was talking about, some strong solo lane options. Let's see what Jankos can do on that Jarvan in the jungle. Wunder versus TheShy. Neeko versus Viktor. This is a matchup that I want to pay close attention to. And obviously, as we run down both rosters, Perkz will be running that Varus alongside Tahm Kench into JackeyLove's Kai'Sa and Braum. And welcome back, G2 Esports taking on the undefeated Invictus Gaming here in day 4 of the group stages. And if I saw the loading screen correctly, was that a press the attack Neeko in the top lane, Vedius? What do you make of that into TheShy's Viktor?
Well, right now we're getting a really good picturesque view of the Invictus Gaming, looking calm, cool, focused as we jump back onto the Rift. Now, Invictus Gaming, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Quick shot, because we've got to keep an eye on what Invictus Gaming are up to in the early game. Notice that they're all sitting on top of a ward right now, but pings are coming out to the duo that's actually sitting. I say the duo, it's Neeko. I'm getting trolled again. There is a top. Wait, I'm so confused right now.
Stop for a second. If you look at the minimap, it looks like there's a Varus in the top lane, but that
I'm pretty confident
Wunder.
it's Neeko.
That is correct. He has changed himself. If you look now to a Tahm Kench.
Look at what hole.
So Spawn, talk us through this invade that Invictus are doing in the bottom half.
Yeah, because the thing is if you have yourself a Tahm Kench and you're not going to be able to really return fire to something like a Braum, it is very difficult to repel, and they're trying.
Oh, why? That they knew that was happening. Devour was used. I have to question G2's decision-making to step forward, maybe trying to catch somebody out. At the end of the day, it's a flash already blown.
Because you've got Silas, one of the best early game champions. You've got yourself a Braum. He is the best level 1 support, as well as that Kai'Sa without a minion wave, just unrivaled DPS. Perkz looks for a steal.
Not gonna find it. Ning is able to smite the red buff, and that means that Rookie returns to the mid lane. JackeyLove and Baolan come down to the bottom, and Ning has already stolen away one of the camps.
So what we're seeing right now is that Invictus Gaming are gaining control over the bot side of the map. Typically, you will see a split map setup when you want your duo to have more priority and to allow them to play confidently because the risk of a jungle gank is significantly lowered. This will just give JackeyLove and Baolan a little bit more freedom in what can be a little bit of a tough matchup, as Varus, Tahm, Kench often is.
And now I'm curious as to what is the next step, Fetty, because we've mentioned this already, but you can fight for priority very well with the Silas due to the passive, and whether there was going to be a jungle cross for Ning to try and defend his red, or whether it is going to be a little bit more standard of just split map gaming. This leaves TheShy on an island right now. No one is in a position to be able to help him without burning a crucial summoner spell. And this on-heat Neeko is such a pest in the top lane.
Yeah, she certainly is. She can provide a lot of harassment at the early levels, especially once she gets that first item. The amount of attack speed that she passively has is extremely obnoxious. And the thing about Viktor is his cooldowns are relatively high early on into the game, so his trading isn't necessarily the strongest. It's not until he gets that first upgrade that he really starts to be a terror of his own in the lane.
And a big sigh of relief would have just happened for TheShy because his wave was getting stacked. It was being pushed into him. However, he saw the low health jungler and now can catch the wave.
Now we see a bit of trading in the middle lane between Caps and Rookie. Silas demonstrating what he is so good at, which is these early skirmishes. But I want to quickly go back to what we were talking about towards the top side of the map and remind people of the final. In Game 3, when TheShy is often put on these scaling champions, teams like to try and shut him down. He's known for being very lane dominant, he's known for getting a lot of jungle assistance, but when he's put on more of a scaling option, he doesn't have the same impact in the early game. He doesn't build those same kind of leads, and he's not as terrifying. This gives G2 more time to play towards the later game.
All right, take a look at this. Caps is able to walk away with his life for now. Ning comes over the wall, but Rookie and Ning weren't able to pick up the kill, and thus far, Ning is already helping Invictus. They stole the red buff, they put pressure mid, but it hasn't cost any summoners.
But an opportunistic gank at best. You can see right now Wunder with pressure on the top side of the map. I feel like Ning was just trying to get Rookie the reset with the teleport because they were trading very heavily. It was making the lane volatile. And to go back to the point, this is a scaling composition. I feel like IG would be very happy to be able to just ensure this laning phase goes for a little bit longer. Maybe not the style that we love to see out of the bloodthirsty LPL reps, but certainly something that they are attuned to playing.
And in terms of scaling on the side of G2, they do have scaling of their own. I actually love the phase rush being picked up for Caps because when you eventually have to go up against things like a Viktor or a Ryze in a side lane later on, having that extra mobility makes your ability to trade against these champions that don't have that same level of mobility much, much easier.
And so crucial. Last time these two teams met, by 5 minutes, there was already 5 kills on the board. It started with Jankos picking up 3 of them on the Jarvan as well. He was trying to help out the Vayne in the top lane. This time around, even CS pretty much across the board. And despite that early blunder or bad call from G2 Esports, which cost Jankos his flash, it has been even trades. Look at the top lane, Wunder pushing into Shy. Look at the mid lane, Rookie pushing into Caps. And right now, the 2v2s are posturing for something, but not going to chase.
Yeah, and I think a really great job from Jankos there is action in the bottom lane.
There is indeed somebody. Did I hear that correctly? Yes, Mikyx threw that down. That's a devour onto Baolan, spits him out. Perkz steps in front of JackeyLove. Now Baolan's able to escape. Here comes Ning. Flash and chilling smites available. Perkz was hunting for first blood, but he gets stunned up by the Braum passive. No way to get out, and Ning is on the board.
And Invictus Gaming read the play. Baolan flashing towards his jungler, I think caught Perkz off guard, and it will be an advantage for the Invictus Gaming lineup.
And this advantage is so much bigger than it looks because notice that this massive minion wave is not going to be picked up by Perkz immediately after he used his teleport just to get back into the lane. Invictus Gaming duo off to another phenomenal start against G2.
That's just such a crazy play. We'll take another look at it. So he teleports back to a creep, and Mikyx looks to go as aggressive. They have a huge item advantage right now.
Yeah, they certainly do. You can see the 3 stacks are being built up onto Baolan, and the reason they're going for this all-in makes sense. The problem is they're not respecting where the potential enemy jungler could be. Perkz doesn't choose to greed and flash for the play because he thinks, okay, if I flash then I'm in trouble, but the passive stacks from the Braum were building up. Perkz tried to flash away from the auto, but wasn't able to in time, which means that he ends up getting stunned up. The jungler can come in for the kill. And the bottom lane of IG pick up an advantage.
And what looked to be a bully lane, you know, with that teleport back in, a lot of advantages going over to the G2 lineup, but now they're without summoner spells apart from the Tahm, Kench, Flash. You can see that JackeyLove going to be able to play very safely, has himself a BF sword as well. So see where the junglers continue to revisit this lane, because it is a fire dragon. And if there is going to be something that will cause a fight between these two teams early, I feel like that could be the objective.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And this will be very much where the junglers now look to focus. You can see both of them are on the top side of the map right now. The red buff has spawned for Jankos, but he wants to try and get a bit of vision control around this top side. And both, well, at the very least, Ning knows exactly where Jankos is, and notice the level differences as well. Even though Ning find this early kill, he's actually been invading a lot, and it actually has a level advantage and a lot of farm advantage as well.
Now that's a good sign for Invictus Gaming. You know, we talked about the scaling on their team composition side and how this was one of the games where maybe they were not going to have that same early game, you know, impact and decision making. But for G2 Esports, they need to try to find a way to get some of their strengths up, because they do, you know, in some places come online a little earlier.
Yeah, they certainly do. And I think that the fact that you have so many carries that itemize so heavily into attack speed early in the game is one of those weird stats that's strangely gold efficient. And I want to hit on as we hold our breath
still, he's not spotted.
Yeah, God.
Okay.
That was fantastic.
Like ships in the night, they nearly run into each other. However, Collapse is here.
All right, no follow-up yet. Baolan level 5 doesn't have that fissure available to him. The Infernal Drake is what is pulling both of these teams together in a potential fight.
But I wanted to talk about the top lane itemization because, no, let's forget that.
All right, Chain of Corruption, that starts to spread. Take a look at that Lobster, getting ready for a gobble, gobble, gobble. Cataclysm comes down and Baolan finally goes down. It's Jankos that picks up the kill. Caps has a roam down, but he manages to sidestep the chains. Forced to flash, Rune Prison comes down. Rookie steals a Chain of Corruption. That starts to spread. Devour buys time and JackeyLove forced to flash defensively. Realm Warp is going to get used. 1-2 members going forward. Rookie gets caught up by a Tongue Lash. Into the Realm Warp, into the knockup, and Rookie goes down. It's Mikyx that lashes him to death. Now Ning is running from the river and nobody's going to chase him.
Very close exchange between the two teams, and it was the Guardian proc from Mikyx that actually ends up keeping Jankos alive at the very end. The teleport now coming in from JackeyLove. No summoner spells on the duo of G2. This could be Ning looking for more.
All right, Jankos is nearby, and Ning decides not to go further. JackeyLove wasn't able to chase, and G2 come out on top.
Yeah, well spotted, Trev. That is going to be Jankos just dissuading any further aggression. I feel like if it was just the duo lane without summoner spells, Ning would have looked for that. However, with recalls being late, that does now mean IG have access to the dragon.
Exactly that. The teleport came in from JackeyLove. There's not going to be any follow-up. Jankos was extremely low. So IG, after all that skirmishing around towards the bot side of the map, will walk away with the objective advantage, and the gold is still very even.
And I feel like a lot of that, Betty, was due to the fact, as we hold our breath again for some more action, that Ning didn't commit to the play, so it was incredibly healthy. Well, Jankos was busy frontlining, like diving turrets, being the tank that G2 needed and securing those kills. Ning wasn't able to make his way into the fight, was actually held out well due to caps, but it does mean that with a health lead, grabs the objective.
And of course, at 10 minutes on the clock, it is an even gold game. IG around 400 up. And as we take a look at what got G2 both their kills.
So let's take another look at this, because I really respect the way Caps is rotating to this play. He's not going to be cut off by these superior numbers, which means that as this fight starts, G2 are actually able to gain the big advantage, and there's no real way for Ning and Rookie to just run past the Ryze.
Exactly that, and the thing is, the duo of Invictus Gaming can't get to the bot lane in time. And as you rightly mentioned, Caps can just zone those two members away. Then Ning is split off apart from the rest of his team, and Rookie, he doesn't feel the need to flash here because he thinks that he's just going to be able to get out with the health that he has. But then Jankos flashes in, gets the knockup, and what looked like should have been a 1-for-1 trade in that moment comes through with the Guardian proc for Mikyx to help that jungler walk out alive.
And you might think with no dragon available, G2 will shift their focus. However, quite happy with continuing to revisit this lane.
I want to draw attention to the teleport that's available on Wunder right now, and it is not up for TheShy. He's just gone back to base.
Fight in the river.
All right, Jankos is in trouble. He's blown up. Too easy to get caught up. While that's happening now, Caps gets jumped on by Rookie. Didn't quite see how that happened. I think Ning just flashed unburrowed.
Yeah, and you're correct, Fetty. What he wanted to do was they recalled Wunder. They wanted to teleport him into a bottom lane play, but he was caught out. Now, without jungler available, they still have a teleport advantage, but you can see Ning deep in the opponent jungle looking for his turn for a proactive play.
All right, Baolan gets caught out by the Chains of Corruption. Halo Varus comes out as well. Devour will spit out Baolan. He flashes away to safety. Baolan goes down. Teleport from Rookie, and Ning arrives in time. Wunder's starting to teleport as well. Wunder's going to jump down. Mikyx goes golden. Buys so much time. The Pop Blossom comes down. JackeyLove kills Mikyx, but now all of a sudden it's a return kill. Perkz gets one back. The Realm Warp that Rookie stole from mid lane is countered by Caps' own Realm Warp, and Rookie gets run down. Overload after overload finally takes him out. Caps and G2 get a 2 for 3.
And Invictus Gaming don't acknowledge the summoner spell discrepancy and get torched by the G2 lineup. Such a great play, but it was off the back end of some mistimed aggression.
Pretty crazy stuff happening in this early game right now. The duo of G2 is now in fact going to swap up towards the top side. That was an insane play. Ooh, here comes the Tahm Kench ult. Don't think they're going to convert it into much though. TheShy slowly been farming up towards the top side of the map, but oh man, crazy stuff coming out. Let's have a look at how this all kicks off. The Braum walks up to the brush to face shake. The thing that's important to note is Ning hasn't actually based yet. He was just hanging around the red buff, and Silas has TP. He's first to join the fight. Wunder then comes in from the field, and Caps waits to clear out the mid lane before TPing down. He knows he has enough time. First, Mickey then drops, and then at this point, it's a 3 versus 2 that they think they can take, but Perkz is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place where he doesn't really have a good option out.
But it's still IG making a play on their prawn side of the map. As my good man Medic would say, you have to be able to calculate those summoner spells. Now with the early switch into the top lane, during the replay, they secure themselves the Rift Herald and are going to look to open up some turret.
Less than 50 seconds before those turret plates drop, the Rift Herald is summoned instantly after being collected. There are members of Invictus Gaming down in the bottom lane, but I think with the help of Shelly, that G2 may be able to win this race. Down to 1 plate apiece, it feels like. No, Invictus should just about do this. Tower, first blood bonus picked up. This will temporarily give IG a happy gold lead, but look at the minimap. Mickey and Jankos are on a warding mission. Caps has already left mid lane, and Shelly may be able to get a charge on this inner turret. Thank you very much for zooming that in, Spawn.
Yeah, because it's all this vision that you're talking about that has been able to be dropped in the topside jungle once the player's been met. The great news here for Invictus Gaming fans is they were able to get in and drop the exact same vision on the bottom side, and you can see trying to utilize that to deny even more farm.
Yeah, meanwhile, TheShy, the important thing to note is he's been very much playing for lane this game, and while early on he felt a small disadvantage, he's now actually in a great spot because of the amount of influence the Wunder's been trying to have on the rest of the map. Now Ning in the enemy jungle, they're looking for a fight.
Rookie's coming in from behind, teleport coming down from TheShy as well. This is going to turn quickly. Pop Blossom comes up and stuns TheShy. So far it's a 1-for-1. JackeyLove is forced to run for his life, but so are G2. Wunder's little shapeshifter will give some vision, as now that's a root landed onto TheShy. He's got flash available but won't get to use it. Realm Warp delivers Caps to Rookie. Rookie gets over the wall. Looking at the minimap, here comes Mickey and Perkz. That's a flash, dash, lick and chain of corruption. Rookie is in so much trouble. G2 Esports have found themselves a few quick kills.
They fight for control in bottom river, and they come up trumps. The 2-for-1, as well as the fact that Dragon going to be picked up. G2 in a commanding position.
And this is the game fans wanted to see. 1 versus 2 in MSI groups. Both teams going blow for blow. The goal dead even. A second Infernal Drake in the game. This is what exactly we wanted to see.
And I heard that Caps had a mental block versus Rookie. Well, I just want to shout out the young man from Europe. 3-0-3 versus the best player in the world. An impressive performance for Caps.
So let's have a look back at how this all kicked off. Now remember, TheShy has TP, but Wunder is already on the bot side, no Varus hit. So this actually starts off as a 4v4. Jankos commits to the play, and they're able to shut down Ning. The problem for Invictus Gaming is that while initially it looks very promising for them, they're the ones clumped up in enclosed space, and they want to escape. Whereas for G2, all of their carries are still in prime positions to be the aggressors, and so they can continue to get this chase down and look for targets like Rookie.
And I feel like if you're going to steal an ultimate in the middle of the fight, the Tahm Kench ultimate is not the one you're looking for. Unfortunately for Rookie, tries to stick around to save TheShy and not able to get it done.
And as we come out of this replay, gentlemen, it is G2 that lead with a minor 800 gold lead. You can see the damage dealt to champions, and there's going to be a little bit more added. Ning decides to follow Jankos. He's going to flash forward, get the unburrow. Now Caps trying to buy some time. There's the steal. Void Rush comes out. Jankos will go down. Caps' is now in trouble. He's locked inside the Cataclysm. Perkz and Mikyx arrive to watch their teammates die, and just as G2 get ahead, IG bounce back.
Invictus Gaming, they never slow the game down. Even though it looked like G2 were in a commanding position, IG have their eyes set on the top tier 1. They sent multiple members up there. Jankos gets caught with his pants down in the river, and IG are immediately there to commit. They find themselves 2 kills, but can they convert it into any objective?
Well, as it stands, Wunder down in that bottom lane is doing a lot of work. Chain of Corruption comes out, that's traded for Baolan's Fissure. Mikyx steps forward. Here comes TheShy as well. Death Ray gets thrown out. That's going to land a stunner to Mikyx as well. Gravity Field buys some time. There's the ultimate from Viktor. Chasing down. This is a fight that G2 started. Yes, they get the tower in the bottom lane, but it's not worth it.
All they were trying to do is keep TheShy interested, you know, keep him around mid lane, allow this wave to crash. However, overcommitment, no summoner spells for Mikyx means he ultimately falls down. I think great idea here from G2, but just a little slip up on the execution.
I mean, honestly, to me, it felt like a bit of an overcommitment. I felt like that they tried to force a play onto 3 members, and while you're right, I understand the idea of keeping Shy there so that it takes him too long to get to bot lane and catch this wave that Wunder had pushed up. Ultimately, it's a situation where you commit a lot of ultimates, and now the heal is gone for Mikyx, so a lot of G2 are now kind of put on the back foot once again.
Taking a look at items, though, I mean, Perkz was sitting on that Wits and Blade of the Ruined King for a little bit, so I wonder if he felt in a power spot. TheShy sitting on Flash, by the way, so he's going to flash out of the Cataclysm. Chain of Corruption was used mid lane just a moment ago, and even though Wunder will find himself some barbs that tangle, there's no follow-up. And I touched on the items. Black Cleaver picked up for Ning. The Hex core is being upgraded by TheShy. 2 items for JackeyLove. So the power creep is starting to move in, and Mikyx with the support of G2 will push Invictus off the mid tower.
Look at how the waves are being set up right now, because you'll notice that in the bottom lane, it's G2 that have the priority. They're keeping the Viktor all the way pushed up here. But Rookie has invaded into the enemy jungle and is keeping this top side pushed in while the mid lane remains neutral, and this means that they can look for a pick on the cap.
All right, Caps will survive just a few seconds, but not enough to get to Devour. Now Mikyx and Jankos are in the fray. Devour has bought some time. That's a Tangle Connect onto Ning. Pop Blossom stuns 3 yet again, but G2 are running for their lives. They've lost Perkz, they've lost Caps, and Wunder will sidestep the chair. No bites from Winter today. A root lands onto Rookie, buys some time. Tongue Lash comes out, and now Jankos fancies another shot, decides not to re-engage, and Mikyx is able to escape.
And we just talked about who had priority in the topside jungle. It was Invictus Gaming. They knew that if someone from G2 walked through the jungle, they could look to punish it, and that's exactly what they do. They find themselves another 2 kills, and they're the ones stealing away all these jungle buffs, extending this gold lead further and further.
And we're above kill a minute, and Caps wants to continue the trend, teleporting in on TheShy.
That's a double TP. Caps and Perkz are looking for TheShy. Chaos Storm is available for him. When does he decide to do it? Sidesteps the flag and drag. Gravity Field comes down. That will slow the engage. TheShy literally walks away. That's all it costs to get 2 teleports.
And the decision-making, the talent, the total package of TheShy, backed up well by Baolan, successfully navigates a very expensive gank.
Both these teams are constantly looking to skirmish, and it feels like Invictus Gaming are the ones that are coming out on top right now. We already talked about priority, and honestly, this actually looked like that it was G2 who wanted to get the collapse. They had the Tahm Kench come in from the flank. They had the ward and spotted Rookie. The big thing is that they did not spot Ning, and he made his way into the jungle.
Yeah, and this is where Tremor Sense is so key, because whilst there was vision already there, they knew the numbers at the start of the skirmish thanks to the Rek'Sai passive. And you're right, Betty, this is an over-aggressive posturing from G2 without complete information.
All right, more information for us. The next dragon is up. Ocean Drake in the pit. G2 Esports are not contesting. JackeyLove, by the way, who nearly insta-gibbed Perkz, is 5-1-2 on that Kai'Sa, Rageblade and Stormrazor, as well as the QSS. And there was an uncontested dragon there, picked up by Invictus Gaming after 20 minutes on the clock, and now G2 have to give up some of this control in the mid lane, where 2-3 in towers, 10-10 in kills, 1-2 in dragons. This is about as even as we've seen for Invictus Gaming, and the best shot that G2 has had at taking down the undefeated Invictus.
However, I will say this has devolved a little bit too far into the team fight meta for me to be comfortable in G2's comp right now. I would like to see them try and separate, try and utilize the Tahm Kench ultimate. However, they've bought in so much. Kind of reminds me of the Fengfu game, but can they take that step backwards now and try and regain control of the map, because it seems to be slipping.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing for G2 Esports right now, slowing the game down, getting your lane assignments organized and trying to control some vision. Because again, if we draw attention once again to the minimap, look at all this vision that's being set up from the side of Invictus Gaming. They have it here, they've got it here, they've got it here. They're the ones in full control over the river, which means they're the ones that get to decide what plays are made where. So if G2 are too aggressive, they're the ones that are going to get caught out.
And because right now they have control of that, you have to start taking risk if you're G2 and try and punch holes to get some advantages back. How do we approach this Baron? How do we make sure that they're not sneaking something away? You can already see blue orbs going down. G2 walk in to try and get some form of control.
And there's no control wards in the inventory right now for G2. Not sure when the last time they reset was, but that's going to make it even harder to actually get that deep vision in. So they're just kind of have to keep slowly pushing up this way. But if they could just take this mid-tier 1, their ability to move through the river and actually set up deeper vision would be a lot easier. But IG doing a great job of holding the line.
Just before the next fight breaks out, we might get a second. Caps, by the way, has gone Spellbinder as well as that phase rush. I want your guys' opinion on whether that's going to help him or hinder him as this fight progresses. Double Wits in, double Blade the Rune King for Wunder's Neeko and Perkz' Varus. And we've got ourselves a 5v5 on the cards. Chain of Corruption thrown out. That tags Perkz, but there's no follow-up. Rookie's hijack not as valuable. Wunder has made his way to the mid lane. And both teams, they so badly want to fight. It is what these teams do so well.
Yeah, they went fishing there, Invictus. However, as soon as Wunder showed, they knew that that was not the fight they were looking for. Already TheShy was posturing in top lane jungle, denying some more CS. We'll see whether this is now the trigger pulled with TheShy off the map.
Honestly, when I look at how this game is playing out right now, my eyes are just falling onto JackeyLove. You already talked about his scoreline earlier on, Quickshot, but with the QSS completed, I feel like he's so much harder to lock down right now. There's a lot of single target CC on the side of G2, and with the amount of mobility that JackeyLove has combined with that itemization, I feel like that he can just rip through the squishy members on the side of this G2.
And so much information just gained by the Kai'Sa W. But to answer your question, no, potentially not.
Holding our breath here as both teams posture around the topside river. G2 have to wait for the Varus. He's still in base right now. Just completed the Rage Blade, a very big item pickup as we move towards these couple of fights.
Yeah, also has himself a Wits End, a hotly contested item. And once again, with the denial of vision, they go back towards the Baron.
And also, Rookie, he's picked himself up by Pop Blossom from that hijack. Invictus Gaming, I think they peeled away from the Baron. Stepping into the darkness. Wunder's clone will reveal not much for now. Baolan jumps on the Perkz. That's already got himself a stun. That was Rookie instead, rather. Manages to find it. Now on the retreat. Caps goes so low. Forced to run. Throws the shield up. Void Rush gets it. Pop Blossom comes down. Rookie's thrown his. Wunder cannot find a way in. He's managed to pick up a kill onto TheShy in the background. Ning is low. Baolan's low. Now Perkz continues to stay alive. Finally, Wunder throws down the Pop Blossom. But JackeyLove gets so much work done. And Rookie closes it down to Wunder.
Beautiful team fight from the side of Invictus Gaming. They deny all of the vision away from G2. They use the Baron as a bait, and the moment Perkz shows himself in the mid lane, they use that as their opportunity to force the fight. This is why Invictus Gaming are given so much praise. They're not just a team fight team, they are a smart team, and they punish G2 accordingly.
And understanding that step one of challenging Baron is regaining control of that mid lane wave. As soon as G2 showed on it, IG were ready to capitalize on that mistake. This is a team, as Vedi was saying, that is just so well drilled. They've shown that they can play the fun style of League of Legends, but this setup here shows that they also can play the macro.
And the thing is here, keep your eyes on the Ryze and how little impact Caps was able to have, because he holds onto his flash for so long and doesn't end up using it just because he doesn't think he can get out of all the burst that gets thrown at him. Wunder doesn't see an opportunity into the fight. The only time he uses his ultimate is at the very end, and that's because he was setting up for a flank while the rest of G2 were just falling apart.
Yeah, and this isn't an AP, Neeko. We're not looking for Wunder to be flashing into the fights. It's much better used as a self-heal tool. I feel like this is a G2 lineup that if they get into 5v5 want to absorb the initial impact. Jankos goes in.
Oh, look at JackeyLove putting so much damage down onto Jankos. Dragon is secured, Baron as well. Yes, there's a kill onto Baolan, but it's not the carries. Pop Blossom started channel, but simply didn't finish. Rune Prison locks down Rookie for a few seconds, but Perkz is pushed out of the fight. He's got no flash available. Invictus Gaming are up 4,000 gold, are up 2 kills, a tower, 2 dragons, and they have Baron buff to push multiple lanes.
Caps is in trouble here.
Oh man, what can he do? He's flashing forward, trying to make his way to Mikyx. Mikyx will put some damage. There's good damage in reply. I did not expect that to happen. Already there's one onto TheShy. Now Ning is in trouble. He finds a kill onto Mikyx and he's escaping with his life. Rookie's got a Cataclysm. Does he throw it down? Yes, that will be enough. Now JackeyLove turns his attention to Perkz. Flashes forward. Captain Rain gets the kills. JackeyLove is ripping apart G2. Caps needs to pop this GA. Teleport is available for Wunder. He should be able to join the fight in just a moment. JackeyLove steps forward. The shield from Caps keeps him alive. GA gets popped. Wunder has not teleported in yet. It is available if he wants to chase down Ning, and he decides against it for now.
Invictus Gaming, they're not even using this Baron buff. They're just continuing to go for kills, and what should have been an easy pickup onto Caps ends up turning around in a massive 3-for-3 exchange, and now here's Wunder in another fight.
All right, Wunder doesn't have Pop Blossom available to him, manages to find the root, but Ning and Baolan just lock him down. The Black Cleaver, GA, Warrior Rek'Sai, combined with Braum CC, make it look easy.
And you can just see that IG are enjoying the pace of the game right now. Every time there's an opportunity to scrap, they are looking for it. Baolan's back gets stopped, but he should be safe. And G2 are just continually going to the play. They're looking for the fights as well, and they're just buying into it.
And the thing is, JackeyLove is the main, what's the word?
Beneficiary?
Beneficiary, exactly, of every single fight, because he's not getting focused, whereas he's picking up all the kills. 10, 2, and 3 right now on this Kai'Sa. 4 items are completed for the AD carry of Invictus Gaming, and it feels like that when the chaos is happening, he is the consistency that allows IG to come out on top of every single fight.
It just feels like when you watch this game and you see this drop from Invictus, Chain of Corruption sidestep by Perkz. Perkz needs to throw one down. Mikyx close enough to devour him. Spits Perkz back out. Now the Void Rush comes out. That will tag. Pop Blossom comes up and drops down. Perkz stays alive. G2 with a defensive kill because IG over-chased. But it simply doesn't matter. They are still in control of the game.
Great job of kiting back, however, and utilizing the comp there. You could see Wunder's Pop Blossom holds Ning in place. Even with the GA there, that would have been a secured kill. So I like this. Absorb some of the pressure. You know, get the game back on your terms. They still got such great items coming out on the side of G2. It's not like they are out of this game by any margin. 4,000 gold, whilst a substantial lead. If G2 can separate the map, they still have the tools to be able to play around it.
My biggest concern right now is that G2 have never had an opportunity to separate the map. Every time a small skirmish breaks out, it devolves into a massive team fight. And the thing is, this Viktor is now online. He's got not only the upgraded Hex Core, but also the Luden's Echo. And we'll have a look back at how this plays out. Perkz is actually the one that, with some really good sidesteps, and Ning doing what he often does, trading his life for a carries, because he knows if he kills Perkz here, his team is actually in a better position. Unfortunately for Ning, the rest of G2 was there to help keep their AD carry alive and walk away with an extra kill and a shutdown.
And that puts us once again into this state of game where Invictus are in control. They are dictating what is happening, and it just feels like when shit gets serious for this team, they up the ante. They are playing cleaner, despite buying into a few more fights that maybe you would like them to. They still come out on top, and they are still driving G2 further and further back.
Hey, I'm not there, coach. I want them to fight as much as possible, but now the attack finally comes in. Wunder's lane with that priority is being set up for the team, but the guy's in trouble.
All right, TheShy does have flash available to him, gets out of the Cataclysm for now, but at what cost is happening? Invictus Gaming, they're starting to recall. What? They're not pushing. It's G2 pushing to the base.
This is G2 doing what they always do and breaking the playbook. Who would expect 5 members to show up bot lane and push for an inhibitor?
G2 Esports are going to take an inhibitor. Only Fongbu Buffalo have been able to do this against Invictus Gaming so far. Now G2 Esports pushing onto the Nexus side.
Rookie's not here.
30 seconds for Rookie. Baolan gets locked down and stunned down. Jankos is caught out. Wunder's in trouble. Here comes Ning. Gets the knockup. All of a sudden, Wunder's down. G2 Esports, have they bitten off more than they can chew? 1-2 quick kills. Perkz trying to do a little bit back, but JackeyLove, as well as Rookie, should easily finish this up.
And in the 5v3, IG stand tall, teleport coming in, they want Caps.
All right, Rookie's gonna try jump here onto Caps with the help of JackeyLove. It is a matter of time. 30-second death timers. Can Invictus finish this?
To answer the question, quick shot, G2 bit off more than they could chew. Invictus Gaming were able to get back in time, and now with the Baron spawning, they're gonna convert it into a massive objective.
Yeah, they should get themselves the Baron, they should get themselves the Elder Dragon, and I think IG are enjoying the game that much, quick shot, that they'll just stick around for a little bit longer. Would have been a task to push. You can see that already members of G2 are spawning, so they'll take the objectives and look for another fight.
Things are just turning a little bit more happy with each and every play. Yes, G2, I want to commend the inhibitor call. but the Nexus call was one step too far.
See, as soon as Rookie cancelled his back, let's take a look at this. He's only just backing now. I thought that this could be a game-winning play, but it was just the micro ability, that individual flair that IG has in so many roles that allow them to win this fight.
Mad props to Ning, how he flashes, gets the double knockup, and then uses the ultimate onto Mikyx to then get behind Perkz. Absolutely beautiful execution in the heat of the moment.
And let's not deny the fact that JackeyLove at the beginning of that fight was 10, 2, and 3. At the end of the fight, 13, 2, and 4. Look at JackeyLove's itemization. Nearly complete build. He's got those Berserker's Greaves, which he can sell for a Phantom Dance if he wants to. But as it stands, there's very few people that can survive the damage that JackeyLove's putting out.
And once again, this is one of those mixed builds where, sure, it does a lot of damage, but he also has himself a Merc Scimitar, has himself the GA, so relatively safe. This is one of the things that Kai'Sa does. She itemizes into everything well, so it just opens up a variety of options.
7,000 gold lead for Invictus. Baron and Elder double stacked for pushing down. Actually, no, it was another elemental they picked up, if that's correct, when they were in it. Yes, it was another ocean. And this time round, they've now just got to deal with the super minions in the bottom lane. It's the only small hiccup that they need to consider. But the easy answer, obviously, just push with it. TheShy teleport available if he needs to.
See whether they set up a dive play, because you can see wanting to play two lanes at the same time here. So I think that IG finally slowing the pace of the game down. Looks like Perkz once again could be the target. No flash available.
No, Jankos, Perkz, and Mickey. No flash on either of them. Rookie's hijacked himself a chain of corruption. Baolan and JackeyLove, they're pushing into the bottom lane with those Baron buff minis. But look at the damage there onto Caps already. Taking a couple of shots from JackeyLove as soon as he steps forward. And we've got ourselves a potential fight brewing.
I actually think this next team fight is almost impossible for G2 to win. The level difference is too big. The item differential is too big. They're going to need Invictus Gaming to make a massive mistake in order to turn this one around, or another crazy play, because with JackeyLove being so strong, he's just going to be able to just rip through this G2 squad.
Let's take a look. The tower's about to fall. Rookie steps forward. Chain of Corruption's available to him. Pop Blossom will throw some time down. Rookie actually stole that one. Now Wunder forced to run for his life. Jankos gets the Cataclysm out before he is killed. But there is too much damage. There is too much of a lead. And there is too much to handle as Invictus Gaming turn onto the Nexus turret. The first falls and Wunder will be unable to find the route. Perkz steps up. Chain of Corruption's already used. Wunder forced back into the fountain. One Nexus turret remaining. Caps is being zoned out. Void Rush comes up by Ning. The fight is split. G2 cannot deal with all of the threats. JackeyLove gets 2. Ning and TheShy get more. Invictus Gaming remain undefeated at MSI 2019.
Absolutely insane game between these two teams. There were kills across the board, but we talked about it as we approached the mid-game. As these skirmishes started to play out, it felt like that everyone was going slightly more in IG's favor, and they got to a point where their scaling was too much to deal with. And while we saw that awesome desperation play from G2 towards the bot side of the map, unfortunately, it just wasn't quite enough.
And there's just so many steps to shutting down this IG lineup. It seems like the correct identification of we need to shut down TheShy, we need to attack his lane has been made. But then what do you do when people like Ning are having career best performances? When JackeyLove with Baolan in this game was unstoppable in the team fights. There's just so many ways that IG can beat you. And they don't even have to all go off simultaneously, it seems like.
That's the terrifying thing. JackeyLove finishes the game 15, 2, and 5. Baolan 0, 3, and 23. I mean, Invictus, they slowed the game down. They had a scaling comp this time round, and it still didn't matter. This is the best shot G2 had, and it fell short.
And the thing is that TheShy is 1 and 4 in this game. He has himself 8 assists, but there's been 29 kills for IG. It's like they're playing with a man down who was getting attacked. I love the creativity, but it just seems like such a task at the moment.
To me, it felt like the Ning and JackeyLove were the true star performers in this game, and mad respect. And a small shout out to Caps. I feel like he overcame some demons. While he didn't find the win, he definitely had a good performance. His best performance against Rookie today.
Shout outs all you want, still lost the game. And we're going to get a breakdown of exactly how IG won from the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. One small correction on the status of spots in knockouts. Earlier, we said G2's win over Flash Wolves earned them a place in the semis. Our stats team did some digging and found some four-way tie scenarios that were not originally considered. For more info, check out LOL Esports Stats Twitter to check that out. That being said, What a treat of a game.
Yeah.
For me, that felt like two heavyweight boxers stepping into the ring and just seeing who could take more punches.
But that's the thing. If G2 were ever going to beat... No, I'll restate. If anyone's ever going to beat Invictus Gaming, don't get in the ring with them. That's like getting...
Why not? That's so fun to watch.
It was so fun to watch.
That's so fun to watch, though.
Don't listen to her.
Yeah, the LPL guy. Keep getting in the ring. Keep taking the swings.
But seriously, the first like 20 minutes of that game, even if you just took one lane and you're like, all right, we'll just have the camera bottom lane. We could keep it here for 15 minutes because they had about 20 fights.
It was so good. I mean, you got 3 teleports on the side of G2, a couple on the side of IG, so of course that makes for plenty of parties in the bot lane.
The micro on this one was so interesting because JackeyLove took so much damage. Good eyes from Caps and Perkz in particular to be able to nail him down. Made it all the easier to follow the Realm Warp, get the kill on towards him. I thought Jankos was dead. This is them literally just fighting on a tightrope.
Exactly, and going into that one, that was after Ning had just gotten the kill on bottom lane and he had the completed warrior. I thought it was going to turn the tides, but G2 came out ahead, only to be instantly revisited
Watch
here.
the Realm Warps here. I love this. Perkz is like, no!
So there's no good way for him to get out, right?
No,
JackeyLove has an auto attack ready in the air, and he's like, do I die to JackeyLove, the carry in my lane, or do I die to the carry in the other lane?
But it was an absolute slugfest from start to finish. That was an early game roll there, but it just continued on throughout the game. And I think what we have to acknowledge, again, for both of these teams is their willingness to push the pace of a game. They see an opening and they take it, and in kind, they react to those things as well. TPs following TPs to look and match and outplay their opponents.
It's what I love to see, and it's how you take down Invictus Gaming. So the fact that G2 recognized this, and also, by the way, split pushing side lanes, everything that Frost has essentially etched out the difference between both these teams came true, because that inhibitor going down, I was like, does the game end here? Rookie took a long time to take it out. If they had won the fight at that point, that's that whole goal to that 10-0 victory gone to the wayside.
It happens until you fight IG, and that was like the problem. It was the decision making to try to end the game after taking that inhib when the Baron was going to spawn, because then it's like high risk, high reward. Because if you catch them off guard there, yeah, you can end the game. That looks great then. But if you die, the Baron spawns at 20 seconds. Your death timers are, 36 seconds? So it was basically game over from that point.
Yeah, I do want to take a look at one other fight. Just picking this one almost out of the blue. 24 minutes in, it's the first Baron that IG will secure off the back end of this mid lane fight.
Yeah, I mean, this one was so pivotal because up until this point, it had been G2 and IG going blow for blow. But right there, he got annihilated by TheShy's burst damage from the Viktor. So Caps was out of the fight so early, everybody's eyes were on Perkz. When he got caught, Tahm Kench ate him, flashback, and it's actually Caps that dies first, paying the price for that pick.
And I think actually, as Vedius mentioned there, right at the end of the postgame, while it is another loss here for Caps against Rookie, perhaps his best individual performance. In particular, I'm going to call out that bot lane Realm War, or Flash play rather, down the lane, knowing that the Tahm Kench could come in, almost outplays the whole thing, definitely overcoming some demons.
Yeah, there were several team fights where Caps was the best performer, and then a lot of good Realm Warps as well.
On the side of IG, if you're not losing to G2 in this game, I think it does, again, just position them that much higher on a pedestal when we're looking ahead and saying, what on earth is it going to take this team down?
They're going to get the 10-0. I admit it.
Wait a minute.
They're going to get the 10-0 at this point. That was the thing.
It wasn't an overreaction,
I was like, this has got to be it. This is probably going to be the only team, maybe in a best one, that can get a game off of Invictus Gaming, and we were close, but it wasn't close enough. I don't know if anyone else comes close to IG at this point. I'm like, that's easy.
Yeah.
Free tournament.
Close, but no cigar.
I just got to put this out on the table. The last close one we had was when Fengvu Buffalo faced Invictus Gaming, so anything's possible.
Hey, Fengvu Buffalo is the only other team to take an inhib off of IG and has also taken down G2.
Boom.
I'm just going to put that out on the table and leave it there. Up next, Fast Wolves and SKT clash for Game 4. Catch that matchup after the break.
It's gonna...
Perkz was hunting for first blood, but he gets stunned up by the Braum passive. No way to get out. Chain of corruption, that starts to spread. Take a look at that lobster, getting ready for a gobble, gobble, gobble. Cataclysm comes down, and Baolan finally goes down. Perkz gets one back. The Realm Warp that Rookie stole from mid lane is countered by Caps' own Realm Warp, and Rookie gets run down. Now Caps trying to buy some time. There's the steal. Void Rush comes out. Jankos will go down. Caps is now in trouble. He's locked inside the Cataclysm. Caps goes so low. Forced to run. Throws the shield up. Void Rush gets it. Bomb Blossom comes down. Rookie's thrown his. Wunder cannot find a way in. Mikyx close enough to devour him. Spits Perkz back out. Now the Void Rush comes out. That will tag. Bomb Blossom comes up and drops down. Perkz stays alive. G2 Esports, have they bitten off more than they can chew? 1-2 quick kills. Perkz trying to do a little bit back.
So Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Save discount?
Yep, using the app, driving safe.
You wanna go? You wanna go, bro?
Hey, do not mess with my discount.
Woo!
You can save up to 30%.
Let's go!
Nice to meet you. Go get him, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.